Hey guys, welcome. I'm Catherine and this is Little Bits of Heaven Homestead. So I'm jumping on partly to give you guys proof of life that I still am out here and I do exist. I have unapologetically been out living life and really enjoying things despite the current situation in our nation. I'm really hoping somebody can jump on here. I haven't been on partly because it's just lots of excuses and reasons why I haven't been, but I dropped my phone and shattered my screen and I wasn't sure if my video was going to come up all cracked because my screen is cracked and I can't really tell. So I hope you guys can hear me too. So welcome back to my homestead. I am sitting in front of my water storage tank. I've shared this with you guys several times throughout our years together here. I want to show you. When my tank is full, I'm sitting outside and it's windy, I have a little pipe that measures our water level. When it's full, this pipe is sitting flat on the ground. And I want to show you guys, this is not unusual for June. Victoria, hey, thank you so much for saying that. No cracks and you can hear you. Yay, thank you. Okay, so my pipe is way up there. That measures my water level. And you can see it's almost at the top. So I have very little water left in this tank. That is not unusual for me come the month of June. And in fact, it's kind of catastrophic for my homestead, and I don't mean to be overly dramatic there. I get all excited at the first of the year and I start planting all sorts of seeds. I get things to germinate. I plant them in my garden. I am gung-ho and super excited about things, and then come June, I run us out of water. And then I start deciding on, well, I have to prioritize. Do I give our livestock, because I've got troughs out here, do I top them off every day? Do I do things like laundry? Do me and my kid get to take showers every day? And really fundamental things that you take for granted, like clean clothes. And so I start sacrificing my garden. That's usually who pays the price, is the garden. So this year, we're almost out of water. And we are approximately 2 weeks away from our rainy season. So usually a month, and it's the time that I'm setting up my garden and really getting things going. So it's this really give and take, push and pull as far as growing the homestead and having to be conscientious about our water supply. I am extremely thankful for the struggle that I've had through the years. This was a huge point of, do I garden at home or do I not? For a long time I was gardening at our business, and it was primarily due to water supply. This has taught me so many lessons. There's my dog Bear in the background there. And I'm thankful for every drop of water, and living in the high mountain desert, that's something that you really come to appreciate, but this is such a visual and been a source of my anxiety for so long. I've got good news, guys, like really good news. Like I don't even quite know how to handle it or even process it. We are tapping into our well up the hill. So you can't see it, and they're gone now, but up this hill, way up there, about 1,000 feet, I have another well. And it is, I can't even describe the amount of output it has in comparison to this well. But for the first time in my 15 years that we've lived on this property, I am not going to have to stress about water. And I'm actually going to be able to water my garden and not have to worry about sacrificing and killing things, and be able to also do things like wash clothes. I know that sounds so funny, but we as a society are really, we're spoiled by convenience, and we don't really understand what it takes in order to bring that to our homes. And it's been such an important lesson, and such a lesson that I'm so thankful for. I mean, I can't even put words to it, but my anxiety is about to be lessened. So I wanted to share some other updates here on the homestead. I hired some kids. I have been, hey Donette. So I'm so glad to have some water security now too. This is going to be lose the lessons that I've learned over the last 15 years. I have literally looked at this pipe probably 3, 4, 5, 10 times a day for the last 15 years, every single day. So this is going to be a weird adjustment for me. So anyways, Royal Amethyst, hey, it's so good to see you. So thanks for joining me live too, by the way. So I hired some kids about 3 weeks ago. They're my neighbor's kids, just the most sweet and responsible and hardworking kids I have interacted with. I am honored to have them as part of my homestead team, but I have been realistic. We've had some major life changes in the last 2 years. It's made it so that I have I'm spread a little more thin in my own personal life and professional life, and I have a huge amount of responsibilities out here, and I can't just neglect them. And so it was hard for me to do, but I not only accepted the idea that I needed help, but I went out and actively sought help, and it's been just huge in my world. I can't even, there again, it's one of those things, kind of like the water situation, is once I got over the hurdle of saying, I need this and I need the help, it's been revolutionary for me. So they come twice a week, they scoop poop, and they're feeding my animals. For the first couple days, it was hard for me because I was like, I thought that I forgot to feed all my animals and I got a little panicky. So kind of like my water situation, there was some mental adjustment. But now that I've fully wrapped my arms around and embraced having help on the homestead, it's been a huge relief. I'm also in the process of, it's awesome to have a team, a Agreed Royal Amethyst. And if you guys haven't checked out my friend, you should go check out her channel. She's pretty great. She and I are soul sisters. So I've got a ton of goats. It is time, let's see, because I do raise them for meat. I don't know if you guys can see them out there, but male heavy. It doesn't matter what I'm breeding, chickens, goats, rabbits, ducks. I end up with a ton of boys, which is probably on the food. I'm going to adjust my foot here. So, okay. So as far as the food raising goes, and proper livestock management, you do need to reduce numbers. You need to have heavier on the females, lower numbers on your males, just to keep peace and the health and well-being of your entire herd or flock or whatever the animal may be. So as far as raising for meat, I'm not necessarily opposed to having a bunch of boys because it makes it a whole lot easier to reduce when it comes time to reduce. So we've been thinning out my flock, or not my flock, my herd of goats, and that's been a huge amount of pressure taken off of not only our resources, because they eat a ton, they are by far my most expensive livestock. And so that's going to be a huge relief as we continue to reduce those numbers. I need to give credit where credit is due. I have tons of support, specifically my friend Sammy. He's been stepping in and helping out. And there again, just so many projects that I have, and where I fall short, he has been there to help lift me up, and I can't give him enough gratitude. So let's see. She says, I wish I had goats. I want a couple of dairy goats. I do have dairy goats. Be prepared that it is a full-time job. You need to be prepared that it is a commitment, but well worth it. So most of my goats are for meat, and so that also makes my workload less. So I have been breeding rabbits, and I lost a bunch of kits. I've had a really hard time this year with rabbits, and I think it's on my end, and it is because I don't breed them as often as I should. They're an animal that they do better if you continue to keep them producing and keep them having litters. Otherwise, they will build up internal body fat, and it's harder for them to conceive and carry. So that's on my end as far as management. So I am breeding more of them, and I lost every kit that my rabbits had in the last session. So I'm really optimistic that this time around we'll have good litters, because that is my primary meat source. And in fact, if I were to recommend any animal to any homesteader just starting out, it would be rabbits. Not only do they have Joseph, yes, I've planted some of your beans. Some of them, my friend Joseph, he sent me these big, he calls them big dang beans, and it is not an exaggeration because these beans are literally like 2 inches big. So I do have them in the ground. I dug one up the other day accidentally and it had germinated, so that gave me hope that the other ones are popping up. I haven't seen evidence of them breaking through the ground yet, but if I don't see it soon, I'm going to plant some more, and I appreciate you so much. I have no excuses for not sending your soap. I had them on my desk and I put them someplace safe, and I have no idea where that someplace safe is. So I'm just going to send you, because that was my only lavender, which you had requested, so I'm going to send you something else. So I'm terrible about sticking things in safe places. They're never safe. So as far as my garden goes, I do have a bunch of stuff germinating. I made the mistake of letting kale, which by the way is atomic bomb proof, but I made the mistake of letting it go to, yeah, Victoria says safe places are never safe. I don't know where in my house they're hiding too, which bothers me. So Mandy says, I always do that, put things away to keep them safe and can never find them again. I'm glad I'm not the only one. That's ridiculous. So my garden, I made the mistake of letting my kale go to seed, and I harvested some of the seeds, but then as I was pulling them out of the ground, I dropped like 10 million of them, and so they're coming up everywhere. I'm gonna have kale for years. But I do have tomatoes going. I had this crazy, we don't have like tornadoes here or really any major natural disasters. We do have something called dust devils, and they're sort of like mini tornadoes. I mean, they're not cloud to ground. They generate from swirls of the wind on the ground. And so they're not like huge, they're not majorly powerful, but I got caught in one the other day and it went right through my yard and it actually uprooted several of my tomato plants, but I've got extras in my greenhouse. So kale pesto is amazing. Just saying, thank God, thank you for that, Victoria, because I was like, well, I guess I'm gonna have kale forever. So, oh, you get them in Iowa too. Yeah, I wasn't sure if it was just a desert thing, being the dust devils, but those things, they're not necessarily like destructive, but I was literally standing in the middle of one and I thought I was in an episode of Final Destination because I had like a piece of sheet metal come throwing, and thank God I have a fence right here because otherwise I may not be making this video, and not to be dramatic there either, but that was crazy. But yeah, it went through and it tossed a couple of my rabbit hutches over here and then tore up a bunch of my tomato plants. So you never know. Always prepare for random weird stuff, because if random weird stuff is going to happen, it's going to happen in your food supply. I think that's why a lot of people don't raise food, is because not only is it labor intensive and hands-on and 365, but anything random that can happen will happen, and it'll come in and take out your entire food supply, and then you're standing there like things are great and then it's dead. So you do have to be mentally and emotionally prepared for that, because it does happen. So, okay, so what else do I have going on? I have, my incubator died last year, and I am an incubator fool. Like, I've got an addiction problem to incubating. So it's probably not a bad thing that it died, because it's kind of kept me back on my numbers. So they're not necessarily destructive, being the dust devils, but not pleasant either. It's weird and improbable to happen. It will. Amen, right? So I haven't been using an incubator this year, and I was a little stressed about it. And I'm going to do a series of videos, mostly because Julie from Dirt Patch Heaven, God bless her, she called me this morning and she's essentially like telling me, put out content, here's what I'm going to do, and you need to do this too. So I need to get on my incubating ball game again. But what I have had this year, and so I went to the feed store and I bought new chicks, and that's really, really expensive. I've had a hard time paying for chicks for the first time in a year of an incubator, so I definitely need to get back into it, because what I paid for chicks, I could have essentially just bought a new incubator. But I also have a bunch of broody hens. In fact, in my coop right now, which is that building right there, I've got like 4 broody hens in there sitting on a bunch of eggs, and I've already had 2 hens hatch out clutches. So instead of depending on my incubator, I've been leaning on my broody hens, which is a lot less predictable and a lot less dependable, but they do a fantastic job if you can keep them broody and if they actually hatch them, and if I don't lose them to predators, because it's also an issue if we've got hawks and skunks and raccoons and fill in the blank predator, it's probably taken out my chicks. So I overcompensate by sole abundance in numbers, hoping to have enough to not only feed my family meat, but also keep us in the eggs and also produce an income by selling eggs. So it's this fine balance of being a crazy chicken lady, having way too many chickens versus having enough chickens to do our basic needs. And so sometimes there's this weird balance between the two. Sometimes there is no balance. So yeah, so I've had some chicks hatched by broodies. Let's see. What else do I have going on here, guys? It's been long, but I don't know if you guys can see, the lighting here is awful. So Joseph says yours are about to grab the top of the porch, being your big dang beans. Yeah, you've got a longer growing season than I do. I couldn't start planting until middle of May, because we get chance of frost until middle of May. And I did plant them, and then I killed them, and then I planted them again. So I'm hoping that if I don't get them to come through the ground, I'm going to be persistent, because persistence pays off. That and my sheer tenacity and stubbornness. And now that I know that I'm going to have water, it's like heaven is open and angels are singing. So, okay guys, well I think that's really all I've got to share right now. I do know that I'm missing a million things because it is just non-stop activity. Now that I know that my video is not all cracked, that'll definitely give me a little more incentive because I've been dragging my feet mostly out of laziness. But so wanted to give you an update. I see you guys are jumping on. I'm so glad that you joined me. And let me know if you guys have any questions as far as homesteading goes. I will be, mostly because Julie's lit a fire under my butt to do this again, but I will be putting out more videos. I do have some prepping stuff I want to put out. I was hesitant to do it mostly because I had a battle of ethics, because you don't necessarily wait for an emergency to prepare for an emergency. But I think things have calmed down enough that I can, with good faith, give you advice on how to grocery shop and how to prepare, because in all honesty, I don't think these lockdowns and this pandemic is over. So I'll be giving you some tips and tricks there on what I would be doing and what I am doing. So that's all I've got for today. Thanks for joining me, and I'll be seeing you guys around. Hope you take care, stay healthy, stay safe. Bye guys.